The temporary market formed by the moving towns seemed to retract quickly, as if startled. They impatiently dropped their stalls, signaling everyone to stop trading and return home immediately. Then, they quickly separated from other steel towns, becoming individual entities. With thick smoke rising, all the buildings opened fire and fled in different directions in a frantic escape. However, at the critical moment, the power system of a mining town malfunctioned. No matter how hard they tried, the engine could not be started. It would become the target of the massive beast behind it. As the world's largest moving city, London was definitely a nightmare for all smaller towns. They lived by plundering resources and annexing the weak. Once captured, the fate of the towns was predictable. Fortunately, just as London was about to close in, the mining town managed to start the engine. The mayor quickly pressed the gas pedal and turned the steering wheel, but as London crushed it, he frantically fled forward. However, the difference between the two was not even in the same league. No matter how they opened fire and tried to create distance, they were still powerless against the fierce predator chasing them from behind. London had limited resources to clear from the mining town, and consuming it could only sustain them for 7 days. But to satisfy the excitement of the elite, they clung to their target and continued the chase. Left with no choice, the mining town had to cross the deep pits left by the wheels. Even though many parts were jolted off, they dared not stop for a second. As the distance between them grew smaller, they could only unload all the precious salt they had gathered to lighten the load and speed up the moving town. Despite this, London still relentlessly closed in, ready to crush them at any moment. At that moment, the mayor saw that the peak ahead might allow the mining town to escape its pursuers. He immediately turned the wheel, trying to pass through a gap that London could not cross. But before they could make much distance, a huge chasm appeared ahead, created by the wheels. They finally realized the gap between these small towns surviving in the cracks and the moving cities. The mayor exerted all his strength to maneuver the mining town along the edge of the chasm. However, the constant bumps caused the old town to nearly collapse, with parts continuously falling off. Clearly, it could no longer sustain itself. London immediately locked onto the mining town and fired a barrage of chain-linked harpoons, each shot penetrating the metal skin and hitting the target precisely. Amid the excited cheers of London's elite, the operator of the steel beast opened its massive jaws, allowing the mining town to struggle in vain as it was slowly dragged into the abyss. This scene played out every day in the Western Age of predatory cities. Everyone seemed to have grown used to this world of the survival of the fittest. Those who quietly descended from the mining towns, handing over their personal belongings to await their fate, would see London's pickings sent to museums for exhibition. The items of no value would be crushed by workers and thrown into the furnaces to fuel London's endless energy. Tom, one of the few archaeologists in the city, would personally check the spoils being collected to ensure that valuable ancient technological relics weren't thrown into the furnace by the crushing workers. Unexpectedly, today, even the usually aloof city lord appeared at the collection site, but he wasn't interested in ordinary household appliances. Instead, he showed great appreciation for the high-tech weapon components left by ancient people. What he didn't know was that these components, when pieced together, formed quantum energy weapons, which were the very cause of the Earth's fragmentation thousands of years ago. Tom, well versed in history, knew how dangerous quantum weapons could be. Therefore, whenever he found similar components, he secretly kept them, planning to bury them when London passed through the swamp. At this moment, the city lord was unaware that Tom possessed weapons technology that could fulfill his own ambitions. He turned, adopting a friendly posture to try to comfort the mining town residents who had become slaves. Unexpectedly, a female assassin wearing a red mask suddenly revealed a dagger and slowly approached the city lord. The city lord seemed to have guessed her identity and looked at her in shock. But before he could react, the assassin's second strike came whistling through the air. Luckily, in the nick of time, Tom appeared and knocked the dagger from her hand, allowing the city lord to barely save his life. Seeing that the chance for revenge was slipping away, the assassin could only knock down Tom, and before the guards arrived, she leapt towards the scrap disposal area. Tom, seeing this, immediately followed, trying to stop her. Unexpectedly, the assassin, in her desperation to escape, rushed toward the mining machine being disassembled by the chainsaw. The two tiny figures seemed insignificant in front of the massive saw blades, and one misstep would mean certain death. However, thanks to her knowledge of the terrain, the assassin easily dodged the gears and sprinted through the familiar streets, desperately fleeing. Though Tom wasn't familiar with the mining machine's structure, He knew that sticking closely to the assassin was his only chance of survival, but just as he managed to jump off a high platform, he found a huge gear coming towards him, mercilessly swallowing the steel jungle below him. In the critical moment, the assassin opened her rear escape and got away, leaving Tom locked in the disassembly room, facing certain death. Tom desperately rammed open the escape door and barely made it into the fuel room, where the crushed pieces of the mobile town would be thrown into the furnace to provide power for London. As the assassin fled, she saw the city lord, seated in an elevator, blocking her path. She immediately turned and dashed toward the waste disposal plant. Every day, London produced vast amounts of waste and excrement, which were discarded through a massive gap in the ground. This was the only chance the assassin had to escape, but just as she was about to take the leap, Tom suddenly rushed up and grabbed her, knowing that if she fell into the hands of the city lord, she would never live to see another day. The assassin told Tom to let her go, warning him not to meddle, for once the city lord knew the truth, he would be mercilessly killed. The assassin broke free from his grip and slid down a pipe. However, just as Tom inadvertently mentioned a name to the approaching city lord, the previously kind elder's face changed dramatically. He kicked down the fence and ruthlessly pushed Tom, who was trying to uncover the truth, down. Even then, he wasn't at ease and dispatched aerial reconnaissance to carefully search, ensuring that Tom and the assassin no longer posed a threat to him. Luckily, the girl was alert enough to wait until the reconnaissance aircraft had left before she ran out to wake the unconscious Tom. Without saying a word, she silently followed the tracks left by the wheels. Suddenly, Tom remembered that he had been pushed down by the city lord. Before he could ask about the truth, the girl suddenly erupted in anger, accusing the man of sabotaging her assassination plan. It turned out that before the girl turned 8, she had lived a simple and happy life with her mother. As an excellent archaeologist, her mother loved to travel and study the technology of ancient civilizations. The man would visit them every so often, traveling by airship from London, spending a lot of time carefully studying her mother's new discoveries. But one day, her mother unearthed a quantum weapon control system from the ruins of America, which caused a disagreement between them. In a bid to seize the powerful energy weapon, Valentine even went so far as to disguise himself in secret. He tried to forcibly take it, and in a moment of crisis, her mother handed Hester a mysterious necklace with an ice symbol, telling her to protect it no matter what. Unexpectedly, she was cruelly killed by Valentine, and young Hester witnessed the tragedy. She tried to stop him, but the man slashed her face, leaving a terrifying scar. At her mother's urging, she fled to the outer realms, barely escaping with her life. Having grown up in hardship, Hester knew the dangers of the wilderness. To avoid being discovered by scavengers and turned into slaves, they couldn't light a fire and had to make do with what they found to hydrate. Though Tom wasn't exactly used to a life of luxury, he clearly couldn't accept this way of drinking water. Unexpectedly, as they spoke, Hester suddenly pulled out some bread from her pocket and began to eat it with gusto. Seeing Tom salivating with hunger, she threw the remaining half over to him. When Tom saw that the bread was over 1,000 years old, he was instantly confused. However, Hester explained that, although the ingredients weren't clearly listed, clever ancient people often added preservatives to their food, so it wouldn't spoil even after thousands of years. Reluctantly, Tom suppressed his doubts and tried a bite, secretly admiring the ancient technology. At night, Hester suddenly woke up from a nightmare, hearing Tom's loud calls. The man thought they were approaching the trade town he had been desperately searching for. Little did he know, what typically appeared at night were brutal scavengers. They targeted solitary humans, and once captured, people were sold as slaves at the Shui market. Seeing this, the two quickly hid in the wheel tracks, trying to escape danger. Unexpectedly, during the climb, Tom suddenly slipped and fell. In her attempt to save him, Hester accidentally cut her calf on a spear. Even so, she gritted her teeth and urged Tom to escape. Just as the man turned around, he realized that she had disappeared. Seeing the massive wheel approaching, Tom involuntarily stepped back. A kind-hearted person rescued them and immediately extended a periscope to observe the surroundings. Once the scavengers had moved away, the vehicle slowly began to move towards the Shui market. The two were kindly arranged to rest in a room. Meanwhile, Valentine's quantum energy weapon had reached a critical stage. With enough ancient tech products, they could repair the doomsday weapon. Once completed, even the Mountain Kingdom in the east would likely be unable to stop London's conquest of the world. But first, they needed to deal with Hester, the troublemaker. Valentine's chief scientist received news that morning about a special prisoner held at the Shackmore prison on the sea. They called the person the Hunter, a bounty hunter whose entire body had been mechanically altered. Valentine thought the person would be hard to control and not useful to them. However, the scientist said that before capture, the mechanical zombie kept repeating Hester's name, clearly indicating a shared goal, making cooperation possible. Without delay, Valentine immediately boarded an airship to Shackmore prison, hoping to persuade the hunter. Unbeknownst to him, far away, Hester seemed to sense this terrifying presence and suddenly woke up from her dream. They soon realized that the door had already been locked from the outside. It was clear that the ones outside were the roaming scavengers. Eventually, the two were captured and taken to the market to be sold. In the sea prison, there was a specially crafted cell made of Aidman metal, housing the most terrifying and ruthless mechanical zombies from the Predator age. Even through the thick door, one could still feel the chilling evil aura, but to fulfill his ambition to conquer the world, Valentine, the Lord of London, had no choice but to make a deal with the mechanical zombies to hunt down their mutual target. Hester, the mechanical zombie, agreed to help, and Valentine immediately took off in a helicopter to destroy the sea prison. Then, using a small nuclear bomb, he blasted a huge hole in the prison's walls. As the entire prison plunged into the sea, the mechanical zombies finally had a chance to break free. Despite the powerful waves, they moved forward relentlessly, each step radiating a terrifying pressure. Their sole objective, to find Hester. As promised, in this future world, without mobile shelters, the homeless would be captured by scavengers and sold at the Xiaoshui market. The slaver who had his eye on Hester planned to send her to the factory to be turned into sausages. Luckily, at the critical moment, a mysterious woman with an Eastern appearance bid a high price. However, the auctioneer recognized her and knew she was wanted by London for a high reward. He was debating whether to capture her in exchange for the bounty. The woman, seeing this, no longer hesitated. She drew a hunting rifle and shot the auctioneer in the head, causing chaos in the market. Hester realized the woman might have come to rescue her, so she quickly picked up a handgun and freed Tom. Just then, the scavengers seemed to be startled by something and activated their weapons. Driving the house, they fled in different directions at full speed. Before Hester and Tom could figure out what was happening, a terrifying scream came from behind. A mechanical zombie with glowing blue eyes locked onto Hester. It seemed Hester had some kind of agreement with the zombie. She quickly urged Tom to leave. The two worked together to climb the wheels, heading towards the moving city above. The mechanical zombie, unhurried, followed them, daring to jump onto the moving wheels only at the critical moment. They successfully made it to the high platform, but as they turned, they found the mechanical zombie blocking their way. With the cliff right beneath them, despair appeared on their faces. Just as the zombie was about to reach them, it was suddenly knocked back by a cannonball, sent flying several hundred meters. The person who saved them was Anna, who was wanted by London. Following her signal, Tom helped the injured Hester onto the airship first. However, the woman, after retrieving the target, immediately changed direction, disregarding Tom's life. At the critical moment, Hester threw a rope, and Tom managed to grab it, narrowly escaping. But before they could catch their breath, the mechanical zombie stomped on the rope tied to the airship. With its arms, it tried to drag the massive object down. To escape, Anna quickly threw a dagger, urging Hester to cut the rope, but this meant Hester had to abandon her own chance for escape. After much hesitation, Anna couldn't bear the guilt and threw the dagger to Tom, urging him to cut the mechanical zombie's rope. Only then did they manage to escape. The mechanical zombie, having lost its target, switched to tracking mode. It quickly located the airship and made it clear that their time to rest was running out. To clear up Hester's confusion, Anna explained that she and Hester's mother were old acquaintances. For years, Anna had been working for the Anti-Traction Alliance in the East. Unlike London, which relied entirely on plunder, the Mountain Kingdom valued peace and agricultural civilization. For centuries, numerous Western mobile cities had tried to conquer this Eden, but all failed outside the Mountain Kingdom's Great Wall. Anna had hoped their peaceful life would continue, but recently, the Anti-Traction Alliance received solid intel that Valentine had bought a large amount of ancient technology from the black market. He was secretly rebuilding the quantum weapon that had shattered the Earth 1,000 years ago, intending to destroy the Mountain Kingdom and conquer the world. All of this was linked to the controller Hester's mother unearthed from the ruins of America 10 years ago. Though Hester's mother had secretly contacted the Anti-Traction Alliance, Valentine had already killed her and stolen the core technology. Anna asked Hester to recall if her mother had left any belongings before she died, which might stop Valentine from invading the Mountain Kingdom. At that moment, Hester remembered that her mother had indeed asked her to protect a necklace with an eye symbol, but it was now in the mechanical zombie's possession. 10 years ago, after Hester escaped Valentine's clutches, she collapsed in the wilderness, on the verge of death. The mechanical zombie Shrike saved her and took the necklace from her. Although he didn't know what this object did, he still took it back along with Hester. In the years that followed, Shrike raised the girl like a father, even making Hester believe that a kind soul lived deep inside the mechanical zombie. During their time together, Shrike saw how the girl was constantly lost in the memories of her mother's death, unable to move on. So, he promised to help Hester carry her pain away. The reanimated beings, after being reshaped, were freed from the constraints of flesh and became incredibly powerful. Their minds were completely wiped, along with the painful memories, leaving only peace and freedom in the end. Hester once thought she could let go of everything and accept the transformation offered by Boral, but 6 months ago, she accidentally learned that London had already set foot in Europe and begun its conquest. To avenge her mother, Hester had no choice but to break her promise and secretly escape. As they spoke, the group successfully arrived at the Anti-Gravity Alliance, an aerial base built from numerous hot air balloons and moving airships. They were in charge of gathering intelligence and monitoring every move of London. However, just as they were making plans, a companion suddenly brought bad news. It turned out that the ancient tech component Tom had been hiding in the museum, intending to destroy it, had been discovered by Valentine. This inadvertently helped fill a gap in the quantum weapon technology. And after repairing Medusa, London suddenly changed course, heading straight east toward the valley. If they couldn't find a way to fight back within 6 hours, the entire Eastern civilization might be wiped out. At the critical moment, a blue glowing airship burst into the Anti-Gravity Alliance. Then, the base's power was cut off, and it was plunged into complete darkness. Amidst the screams, the mechanical zombies kicked down the door and stormed in. Anna immediately opened fire to fight back, but Hester had complex feelings toward Shrike and even wanted to stop everyone from hurting him. However, the terrified companions didn't listen and kept charging into their deaths. Unaware, they were facing a mechanical zombie that showed no mercy. Soon, members of the Anti-Gravity Alliance were taken down one by Shrike. During the struggle, the hot air balloons hanging in the air malfunctioned and exploded, causing the whole base to burst into flames. In the midst of the crisis, Anna urged Hester to quickly board her airship and, together with the remaining companions, tried to hold off the mechanical zombies. Finally, through teamwork, Shrike was caught off guard by a grenade and fell straight down. But he wasn't done. He quickly moved along the bridge and stopped Hester, who was about to leave. To keep his promise, Shrike, despite being severely wounded, didn't stop. He mercilessly stepped on Tom, who was charging at him. Unexpectedly, Hester suddenly became frantic and tried to stop Shrike from hurting him. The mechanical zombie clearly didn't understand human emotions, and his eyes showed a hint of doubt. He stared at Hester's face, suddenly realizing that the reason she was stopping him might be that she had fallen in love with the man beneath his feet. He didn't understand why he felt such inexplicable sadness. Even his titanium alloy heart couldn't bear the sudden wave of loss, and Shrike collapsed to the ground. A human light flashed in his eyes as he returned Hester's necklace and voluntarily broke the promise between them. Seeing the girl's happy smile, Shrike finally understood that he had lost completely. His obsession over the years was just one-sided. Maybe he couldn't comprehend complicated human emotions, but as long as the girl was happy, he would die without regrets. With sadness in his heart, Hester boarded the airship with Tom, successfully escaping as the Sky City fell. They crossed countless ruins of mobile cities that had tried to conquer the Great Wall, finally reaching the Mountain Kingdom's territory. The towering walls, having sheltered countless refugees for centuries, provided the harmonious home and agricultural civilization passed down through generations. To protect the hard-won peace, the Federal Lord, upon hearing of the enemy's impending invasion, decided to strike first. In an instant, the deafening alarm sounded, alerting the soldiers to prepare the anti-aircraft guns on the walls. The Allied fleet pilots got ready to take off, but Anna noticed that London had suddenly stopped 100 kilometers away. Then, they opened their turrets and began charging Medusa. Before the Allied fleet could position for battle, London suddenly focused all its power on the quantum weapon system and ruthlessly pressed the activation button. Even the 100-foot-thick city walls couldn't withstand Medusa's attack, and a massive gap was blasted open. The homes built on the walls quickly became a sea of flames, with screams echoing in the air. Meanwhile, the residents of London cheered, completely unaware of the flames heading for their own homes. At the critical moment, Hester noticed that Medusa's forehead on the statue had a perfectly placed eye. She thought for a moment and quickly opened the relic her mother left her, discovering that it contained the driver program to destroy the quantum weapon. Thus, the group decided to form a suicide squad to escort Hester to London and destroy Medusa. As they looked down at the sea of flames and the cries below, everyone felt heavy-hearted, silently vowing to complete the mission. But just then, London once again drained power and began charging its weapon. The second wave of attacks came rushing in, widening the gap in the city walls. Fortunately, the group managed to take off just in time, narrowly escaping disaster. To cover Hester's entry into London, the other companions took on the task of drawing fire. They urged Anna to fly low and conserve strength. With their firm resolve, the group flew their airship through a storm of bullets, quickly counterattacking and knocking out the enemy's turrets. The shockwaves from the explosions spread above the residents of London, and they finally realized the horrors of war. Screaming and running in panic, at this moment, a red fighter jet flying low was spotted by the enemy and fell into danger. A man immediately volunteered to provide cover for his teammates but was unexpectedly hit by a bullet and bravely sacrificed himself. The group had no time to mourn as they opened fire and quickly approached London City, aiming to reach the church and destroy Medusa as fast as possible. However, the City Lord's command center was equipped with the world's most advanced anti-aircraft weapons. Without destroying those turrets one by one, they would never be able to land safely. Despite the death-defying sacrifices made by the suicide squad, one turret still stood tall at the watchtower, firing relentlessly. As they watched their comrades hit and forced to fall from the side, the woman's ship had almost run out of firepower. In desperation, she had no choice but to sacrifice herself and took out the last turret, giving the red fighter jet a chance. Successfully docking near the church, the group decided to split up. Hester would take the drive to terminate Medusa. Anna would cover her, eliminate the guards at the entrance, then hand the controls over to Tom. Meanwhile, Anna would keep escorting Hester, armed and ready. After 2 rounds of attacks, Medusa started showing signs of overheating. However, Valentine ignored the scientists' warnings, determined to proceed with the ignition to destroy the Great Wall as quickly as possible. In the critical moment, Anna had planned to strike, but the mansion's butler charged in, blocking the fatal blow meant for the Lord. To signal Hester to move forward, Anna fired relentlessly at the butler's body, but was accidentally shot in the abdomen by the Lord. Seeing the scientists scattered in fear due to the sudden attack, Valentine sneered and pulled out his sword, preparing to personally handle the intruder. Meanwhile, Hester sneaked into the church, retrieved the drive, and plugged it into the controller. She began following the on-screen password to stop the firing command, and as she was about to complete her mission, a woman, determined to stop her, grappled with Valentine. Even after being fatally stabbed, at the last moment, she managed to help Hester disable the plasma cannon. The ignition sequence was forcibly halted, preventing Medusa from releasing the stored energy, causing it to rapidly melt from top to bottom. The taste of failure crushed the last semblance of humanity in Valentine. He ordered his subordinates to kill all the pilots of London City. Then, he deliberately sabotaged the braking system, intending to use the massive machine's momentum to strike the Great Wall. After completing this, the shameless Valentine tried to escape in the airship. However, his side was caught by a rope, preventing it from taking off. As Valentine tried to untangle the rope, he suddenly realized that Hester had been waiting for him all along. When he saw her pull out a gun, ready to avenge her mother, Valentine revealed a shocking secret. Hester was actually his biological daughter. Taking advantage of her shock, Valentine grabbed the weapon, trying to take control. Little did he know, to prevent London from crashing into the Great Wall, Tom had piloted the red fighter jet deep into enemy territory and destroyed the engine responsible for powering London. Using his size advantage, he quickly escaped, and the shockwave from the explosion caused the airship to shake violently. This gave Hester the chance to retaliate and knock the weapon out of the Lord's hands. She then drew a knife and carved a scar on his face, paying him back in kind. With Tom's help, Hester jumped to the rear of the red fighter jet and firmly grabbed onto it. As the victor, she witnessed Valentine's death firsthand. In the critical moment, Valentine jumped into the cabin, using a dead pilot's body as a cushion to survive. Before he could celebrate, the weakened London City came roaring toward him. It crushed Valentine's comrades, and just in time, stopped in front of the Great Wall. In the final scene, as the residents of London City, battered and disheveled, approached the mobile city, They found that the Mountain Kingdom did not reject them but embraced them, showing mercy to this group of marauders. As long as they embraced peace and let go of their disputes, they would soon rebuild a harmonious nation that would welcome all races on this land. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.